Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Sequel Q&A. My name's Doug. So the next sequel that we're going to be covering is one that I honestly did not know existed until I became Facebook friends with this week's guest, casting director and writer, Michael Testa, a Jersey guy. We became friends on Facebook. He posted a message from a fan that he talks about in the interview that was like, "Oh man, you did great casting Wild Things 2." And he's like, "I didn't cast Wild Things 2." But in fact, he did. So we're going to be covering that next week. It's free on Tubi, which is always fun. So be sure to check it out. And yeah, Michael was a blast. I always love talking to anyone about their journey, but there's something about folks from Jersey. It's just as we kind of talk about the little fabric of it. I'm sure all states and parts of the United States have their own vibe. Pacific Northwest. Probably love people from the Pacific Northwest, wherever they're at in the world. But I don't know, Jersey's just a little different. But yeah, we talked about how his first job happened because his uncle was the chief of the police and basically said, "You gotta hire my son if you want to film in this town." Then we talked about how the game changer for him was working on Roswell and how that works if you don't cast a pilot, but the series. Cold Case, having the opportunity to cast not only the adult, but also the child version, for those flashback sequences where they had the age gaps. And he casted Jennifer Lawrence on that. Then we also talked about A Deadly Adoption. Everybody remembers that 11 years ago, Will Ferrell does a Lifetime movie, and you're like, what is it? Is this a sketch? He has some really cool behind-the-scenes stuff on that. And then also we talked about his writing. He writes now, but he's always written, just like writers do. But he's actually, he's got it out there. He just had a movie come out a few months back called A Royal Montana Christmas. Did really well. Like he said, he doesn't look for those movies like to watch, but he loves working on them. He loves writing them. And that's all that matters. So before I start the interview, please like, share, subscribe, follow, whatever other words you could put in there, and tell some friends. Do it. Why not? And without further ado, here is casting director and Jersey guy, Michael Testa. It's a really cool thing just to hear about that journey from the beginning to pursuing it. So for you, being a fellow Jersey guy, you said you grew up in the Oranges, like that area?
West Orange and a little bit of Newark in terms of my father had a construction yard down in Newark and I was there a lot.
Oh, so, cool. Nice.
So, but mainly, West Orange. And then I was there until I went to college. And then during college, my whole family moved down to right now we're in the Highlands and by Sandy Hook. So we're
it's the best.
People. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the beach I always went to because it was one of the cheapest, and it was the first one.
It was the first one, right?
Yeah.
And then Seabright right there's a nice town right before. It's nice. It's a great area.
Heck yeah. My mom would be like, "Well, no Point Pleasant," because when I was little, that's when like Point Pleasant was really dicey.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's better. I think it's better now. And as we parts that are better, parts that are not so good. It's like anywhere else.
So at what point was it like growing up in West Orange that you thought of like, what was your avenue to get into casting? Was it acting first?
No, I never had an inclination to be an actor. I'm a film buff. I'm a film theorist, and I like to. I studied film. I went to Seton Hall Prep, and I studied film there. And believe it or not, and it was very intense, and it was really a very intelligent course in terms of the teacher. He knew. Can I curse on these things? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
He knew a shitload about movies and whatnot, how to make them. So I studied, filmmaking and also film theory and film history. So for 3 years at Seton Hall Prep. So that got me my, interest up. And then quite frankly, honestly, is when I went to go see The Shining in the theaters, I was like, wow, this is so effing cool. Like I want to be involved in this somehow, some way.
Yeah.
So that sort of just happened. Like that.
That's cool. So when you see The Shining, especially that you had that, the experience with the teacher who, like you said, knew shit about movies.
Right.
When you're watching that movie, is it like, because I've talked to people that work in film and it's like you're watching a movie, you're seeing it in a sort of different way, like noticing different things at that point yet?
I don't like to look at movies, especially doing casting. When I first watch something, I don't like to look at it as a quote unquote professional and trying to dissect it. Oh, they should have done. I just sort of want the experience sort of neutral experience just to see what happens to it. That's how I can judge. And then, but I'm also pretty good at, as I'm watching something, processing what it's about, and then then from there, and if I really love the movie, I'll watch it a million times. And, then that's when I start dissecting. And I don't even like, in terms of cast, and I don't look at, like, a funny story was I watched the first season Mindhunter on Netflix,
Yeah.
and there was the actor who played, God, I forgot the name of the character, the big, tall murder guy who they interview in jail. And I was watching it and I'm going, God, he looks familiar, but I don't want to look it up in the middle of this because I don't want to,
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to watch and just enjoy it. It's like, but remind yourself afterwards to, look.
Yeah.
And I watched the whole thing, like, wow, that guy was really good, really good. And then I look and it's like, it's an actor who was already on my show doing like a scale role. It's still doing it. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it was him. And I was like, I went up to him the next couple of days during lunch. I was like, you're doing Mindhunter, but you're doing this show, which is was not a very good show. It was, Cameron, thank you. I couldn't remember his name. And you're doing this show, but he says, yeah, no, I did it between seasons 3 and 4. He says, you never know. You do these things, but you never know if it's going to hit. And this is a great job, even though it pays scale. I still can make, wake up and, it's a recurring, so I can wake up and make $3,000 for the week without even doing anything, so I was like, wow, as a dude, you're so much better. And it was like one line every episode. It wasn't even like,
Yeah.
one line was like, oh, here, that's all he did. And now, he's off doing, he won, I think he was nominated for a Golden Globe, but so I don't like to watch something and sort of critique it as I'm doing it. I just like to sort of enjoy it for what the experience is. And then if, I'll go back and I'll look and I have
That
to
is,
do it.
what? I should take a page out of that because I'm so bad with that. I'll be watching something that has a lot of, I need to pay attention, and
Yeah, I
I'll
also
see,
you want to
I'll
enjoy
do
it.
the same thing, and I'll
Right.
do like, oh yeah, oh, and he was in that, and he was in that, and I
Yeah,
go
that's
down
yeah.
this rabbit hole. But you're right, like, because you probably enjoy it so much more. Because maybe if you looked before when you
Right.
watch a
All of a sudden
Mindhunter, it would
that
have ruined
right.
it. You would have just been thinking of that guy.
Oh,
Yeah.
that actor brings some baggage. I didn't like him in that. And all of a sudden you have a
Yeah,
certain thing, Yeah, no. Just so when I saw it, like, obviously the first time I saw it, and I had read the book. I was a voracious reader when I was a kid, like
yeah.
obnoxiously so. And I read the book way before I should have in terms of age-wise. And I was like, it's a great book. So I was very anxious to see it. And I had been a little bit of a Kubrick fan before that. And then when I saw it all together, like, I was just like, wow, this is what I want to
Wow.
do. So
So then, where'd you end up going to school?
I went to Northwestern.
Oh,
I
sweet.
applied schools. I got, not to brag, but I got some scholarship. I got UCLA and USC and a whole bunch of places. And I just chose Northwestern just to have a sort of a better, well-rounded education.
Mhm.
Um, so I went there for 4 years, a radio, television, film department. Um, and then I graduated from there and I moved back to Jersey and I got a job right away on a film set. They were shooting a film in West Orange. And apparently, like, because I get home and my father, was a real character and very much like Tony Soprano in Sopranos without all the whacking.
Yeah, yeah.
And he says, "Oh, by the way, you're going to start a job tomorrow. They're shooting a movie right across. They're literally shooting right across the street from my house at a reclamation center and whatnot." And I was like, "How?" Basically, apparently, what happened was my uncle, who was like the chief of police at the time, was like, "You're not getting any permits until you hire my nephew." And it was like one of those.
That is
And
nuts.
so I was a PA. I hated it. I'm not a film set person, but I became friendly with the director and I started working for his little, very small company there. Um, and just started getting involved in as much as you could get involved in the film industry in New Jersey. Um,
Wow.
and then, moved out here.
Did you start doing casting for him at all? Was that one of the things that you
No,
were
not at all. No, no,
doing for
no,
him?
no. I started sort of like post-production in terms of press releases and all that stuff. And then the director and I actually started writing together. And we wrote a script that kind of got bought or optioned out here. And they started putting actors on tape there. So I got a little
Oh,
taste of
wow.
that. And then he went on to become an advertising head of creative head at an advertising agency in Livingston, New Jersey, and hired
Oh,
me as a
okay.
copywriter. And I was there for like a year and a half, and we wrote ads, we won awards nationwide and all that stuff. And then I was just like, I can't write fucking radio ads for banks anymore. I can't do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so then I just got in my car, drove out here.
What kind of like jingles? Like
No, it was a little
radio
like, 30
jingles?
second or 40-second ad, and then the company itself sort of specialized in real estate and banking, financial institutions. That was sort of their thing. And like we put together a direct mailer, which won like a national award, and just like radio commercials or little ads
Yeah.
here and there, your direct mailers and all that stuff. So
And then
that's
you
where it
said,
kind of
"That's it. I can't do this."
I can't do that.
And you just get in the car and go? Did
I mean,
you
I remember going, like, they would take me to, like, it was real estate. There was, like, developments and community developments, like, in right outside of Pennsylvania or, like, da, 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 and we drive there, and I'm like, "Why the F am I don't care. There's a tree. It's a house and a tree. I don't what am I supposed to do right about this?"
Yeah.
So,
So
I
do you
said,
have any
"No more."
connections out here at that point? Did you know
Nope.
anyone or you were
Nope,
just
no one. The only person I knew was my crazy cousin, and, and then
construction dad, chief of police uncle, crazy guy? Does sound like a
crazy
psycho.
cousin. Yeah, well, I mean, I think most people from Jersey have a little bit of a screw loose, which is what I
Yeah,
love about it.
my dad worked in the garbage industry, so I
Yeah, there
get
you
it.
go. Okay, so, listen, you get it. No,
Yeah.
I applied, I looked in Variety. Variety used to have want ads, like classified ads, and, there was an ad for a casting intern at a TV production house, Stephen Cannell Productions. They did, like, 21 Jump Street and Booker, Hunter,
Oh,
Wise
sweet.
Guy, all those great '80s, late
Vancouver
'80s.
based.
Yeah, Vancouver was Vancouver based, but they had I think a 9 or 10 shows on the air at that point. And so they had an in-house casting sort of office, and they needed an intern to sort of, generally answer the phones, do everything they need for the company and sort of work directly under the head of casting there. And it wasn't even I got the job. I mean, I remember the interview. It's funny. It's true. It's funny going for the interview, and the casting associate who worked hand in hand with the head of casting, a man named Simon Eyre, she was interviewing me. And then the last question she asked me was, she says, "Do you cry easily?" And I was like, "No, why?" And she said, "Well, the last intern Simon made cry. It was a big to do. It was like, HR got involved. It was a whole thing, and she stormed out here in tears, and I just don't want to go through that again." And I just said offhandedly, "Listen, before he makes me cry, I'll take that chair over there and I'll bash it over his head." You know, and she was like, and she literally went, "You're hired." Like, she hated him so much that she wanted to hire somebody that would potentially stand up to him. And the funny thing is, Simon and I, we got along great. I'm still friends with him now to this day. And 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 he just wanted somebody to laugh at his jokes, had a bizarre sense of humor, and a thing. And I
Yeah.
don't even remember what her name was. But to him, I was like, "Oh, great, hey Simon, how you doing?" It's still, we're still friendly. So, and that's how I
It's
got
like
into
you're,
casting.
like, waiting for the other shoe to drop when you're, like when somebody tells you about somebody being so
Yeah,
horrible, and you're, like, going in
exactly.
like, "I'm gonna hate this guy," and then you're like,
And then
"I
yeah.
kinda like him."
And I literally said to her, I said, "I know there's other people out in the waiting room. Don't you want to interview them first? Like, before?" She said, "No. Can you start on Monday?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Great." I'm like, "Okay."
Wow.
So, and I
So
was,
that was
that
the
was like,
first taste
that was
of
about
doing
2
that.
weeks after that was about 2 weeks after I moved out to California. So
Wow.
I started working pretty right away. So, and then I got put on staff. I was made an assistant on a TV show called Hunter.
Yeah.
I want to say, like, no, 2 months later, or a month and a half later.
Wow, so Hunter? Okay.
I
And then what does
remember.
it go to that you're doing, like, the first credit I'm sure you did the way IMDb works, like, everything's not on here, but the first, like, credits you have are Love Bites and then LA Law as a casting associate. Those are, like,
Well,
the
oh
early
my
ones.
God. I mean, I don't know. You just sort of like, it's like any other kind of profession. You float around.
Mhm.
The in-house casting got sort of dismantled or whatnot, and I forgot. I then sort of worked independently for a little bit. Then I went back there to work under the new head of casting as his associate, um, who later went on to be the head of a CBS casting. And that relationship was, I mean, I liked him, but I didn't like working for him. And then I don't know, like L.A. Law was done by those two things were done by the guy Simon Ayer, who ran the casting department
Oh,
independently.
okay.
Like they went on. I then worked for his wife, who was another casting director, as assistant, and they went on to go cast the last season, I think, or last two seasons of L.A. Law, and they wanted me to come on as an associate there. And then as a friend of his was direct, a friend of his who owned like a furniture store, got some money to make a movie called Love Bites, and he wanted Simon to cast it, so he wanted me to come along and help him cast it. So that God, who was in that? It was Adam Ant. It was Adam Ant. Remember Adam
Really?
Ant? Say Adam Ant was in
Yeah.
there. I believe that. Michelle Forbes. And yeah, God, oh my God. That you brought up a blast from the past. Love Bites. Jeez. I've cast so many things now that I forget. Somebody Instagrammed me and said, "Oh, you did a really good job of casting Wild Things too." I'm like, I never cast that. I never cast that movie. I said, "No, you guys." I know I did. I would remember. Of course, I would remember. Like, I never even heard of it. I never even saw it. I don't even know nothing about it. And then they sent me a screenshot of my credit on the movie, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I did cast this movie. I totally forgot. Totally forgot."
Is that because what's the I know all projects are different, but what is usually the turnaround time from when,
Well,
Michael
it's
gets
different now
started
because of
to your
because we're
job's done?
unionized and whatnot. So now it's a different thing. You can't.
Oh, okay.
But but now it's usually you start a film 8 weeks out, usually the average before it starts shooting. The lower end movies and some of the freaking too many Christmas title movies that I cast. They're usually like 4 weeks before you do it. Before they shoot. But back before he was unionized. I mean, I did a movie called Love and Sex. I was on for like a year and a half,
Oh, wow.
which is a process I don't mind because it's kind of fun. And I love doing films because you sort of work hand in hand with the director. You kind of get a good sense of kind of seeing somebody's brain. And you kind of live with it a little bit. And that movie went through many changes and many different reiterations in terms of cast. And so I was like, that was a long time. So it varies, you know.
Yeah. What
I
would you
mean,
say? 'Cause you said like you're doing so much of this, like when you're doing the casting. Uh, so do you remember like early on? Because I remember I only talked, like I mentioned when I reached out to you, I only talked to a few casting folks. I talked to Fern Champion and
Mhm.
Glenn Daniels, and I remember Fern. It was funny because one of the things she talked about like wins for her was like Cameron Diaz was one that she was like,
Rough. Of course, she
and
did the
Phoebe
math.
and Phoebe and Phoebe from Friends because she plucked her from something else. But then she also talked about like, oh, she casted the guy that was Danny Tanner before Bob Saget. So that was like one thing. She's like, oh, why did I think this other guy would work out? Everybody hated him.
I don't think of those as sort of wins. Like, I
Yeah,
never
yeah,
say like I discovered anybody or did anything. I just provided an opportunity, they themselves. I mean, like, and I've done a lot of episodic, and I did a TV show called Cold Case. I mean, it was Jennifer Lawrence's second, it was her biggest job at the point. It was, I hired
yeah,
Chadwick Boseman, Michael B. Jordan, Melissa Leo. I was a big fan of hiring Amy Adams, numerous times. So it's not like it's a win, because at some point, if you do it long enough, everybody and their brothers come through your office.
yeah,
I
yeah. No,
remember I
that's
worked as
true.
an assistant on a soap opera back, with Simon's wife, and we were doing a LA search, and it was like Ben Affleck came in and Adrian Brody and like all these people were in this final session for a soap opera,
Yeah.
so it wasn't like, you don't really create anybody. I kind of find that I always find that kind of weird. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, no, no, I know what you mean. I think more in like when she mentions win, I don't think that it's like obviously her hitting it
No,
big. I
yeah,
think
I'm
that
not saying that she thinks that way, but yeah.
no, I know, but I think I mean like it really worked for the role. Let's say if like I
Oh
was
yeah, yeah,
casting
yeah.
something, it was like
That happens
yeah,
numerous times.
yeah, yeah.
That happens,
Like yeah, because she was perfect in the mask. It's not like she had her in some random like
No,
girl at party
and that
number
is,
4. Yeah,
right. I guess that is a win because she was sort of brand new and she came on with such gusto and there was, everybody noticed her right away. Well, the funny thing was when that happened, no, it didn't happen. It happened with my best friend's wedding. The movie I was talking about, Love and Sex, she had come in or she wanted to do it, but the company that was doing it didn't want her to do it because she wasn't a big enough name. And then the minute my best friend's wedding opened up, and she got a lot of attention off of that. I mean, I think that was the one that really pushed her into like mega status, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and so they went back to her, and she's like, "I'm not doing this movie now. For you, you kidding me? Like, you could have had me before, but now you don't want me. So
Yeah.
no, I don't want you." And I was like, "Of course she would say no. I would say no. Anybody would say no."
Yeah.
So
You brought up something interesting, like when you mentioned like Cold Case. Now, at the time when you're casting those people,
mhm.
is there any that you were just like, wow, they're going to be something, or is it just like, all right,
Well,
they're the
listen, I think
person?
I guess obviously there's you think that. I mean, I always loved listen, in terms of, like, Amy Adams, I always loved her. Jennifer Lawrence was 15 at the time, so it was
Yeah.
I actually kind of forgot that I cast her, quite frankly, and until a director of that episode that I cast her in, I posted something about the Hunger Games, about how great she was and whatever, just offhanded posts. And, like, yeah, and Chris, he messaged me saying, "Yeah, we have good taste." I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
That's
And he's
great.
like, "We hired her." I said, "When? What are you talking? I don't even know what are you talking about?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh," and he says, "Oh, we hired her for A Dollar Dream," which was the name of the episode. And then once he mentioned that, I was like, "Oh, yeah." And then it all just came flooding back. Like, I remember her coming in. She was in here for pilot season with her mother and father, staying at the Oakwood, like right up the street from Warner Brothers, where I was based. And she was looking for a pilot, but in the meantime, a lot of the actors who come out of her pilots used to come out for pilot season would go out for episodic just to keep, and so she did, and that's how she got it. God, I'm just saying now, I'm forgetting two things. I must sound like I have like Alzheimer's or something like that. So
And then right after that, age-wise, that's when she got, According to Jim, right?
she got winter bone, I think, like 4 or 5 years after I cast her
Oh, okay.
in Bill Case. She had done, I think she did something else in
Yeah,
between,
she was on According to Jim, I think, the TV show.
yeah, she was in a TV show. Yes, that was
One
the
of
one.
the Oh, no, I'm sorry, not even According to Jim. No, she was on the Bill Engvall one.
Bill Engvall, that was it.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, that was on for a while.
Bill Engvall, I think it was on for 2 years.
Oh, that's it? Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, so no, so yeah, so like everybody comes through and you don't really know. I mean, you notice. I mean, I remember like when Chadwick Boseman came in, I was like, oh my God, I love this guy. Like, I just love him
Yeah.
too. This is all that's great. And I usually have pretty good instincts about that kind of stuff. But like Michael B. Jordan, who I kind of knew from soap operas and auditioning and they're somewhat friendly with, when I hired him, I was like, okay, good. I did that when it didn't do anything for me just because he was fine. It was a fine role. It wasn't a very showy role. So it was hard to, you know, judge from there, but you know,
Yeah.
you
So
get a
what would you
feeling.
say when you're thinking about why you're doing this job, because obviously there has to be a point that you're either when you're starting to being the full casting director, just you, that there's like, okay, I can do this. Like something worked out. Do you remember like I mentioned the word win before, but like for you personally, like the reins were all on you. Do you remember the
Well,
first time that
I mean,
was?
I well, as a person who avoids responsibility, I, that's why I like working with my casting partner for
Mhm.
a lot of stuff, just because I like the idea of bouncing things off the ideas. But I think it's also very important that if you're having a career, you want to move up in some things, you have to sort of you have to draw the line in the sand at some point in order for you to move forward. So, a case in point, my last job as a casting associate was the pilot for Everybody Loves Raymond. And a great
Oh my
time, it was a
God.
great time, and it was really, really great, and it was great, but at that point, when I was done, I said, "No more associate. The only job I'm gonna accept in casting, I don't care if I have to go, be a valet somewhere, the only job in casting I'm gonna accept is as a casting director." And I remember when I made that decision, like, the next 2 days, I got offered 3, like, killer associate jobs. One was, like, babysitting Al Pacino on the set of The Devil's Advocate and doing some miniseries that CBS was doing with Marlon Brando. It was like a whole I was like, "No, no," and I turned them all down. And then, out of the blue, my old casting partner called me up and said, "Hey," and I didn't really know him, but our friend, a mutual friend, Leanne, who was an agent, blah, blah, blah. We should get together, do casting and be like, run a casting company and whatnot. And I just went, okay. I said, okay. He says, well, don't you want to meet? I'm like, no, I've decided to be casting director. This opportunity like came. Let's just do it. and we did.
Oh.
And that partnership lasted for 14 years, I think.
Oh, wow. Just
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. I go a lot by gut instinct, and I pick a lot of my projects just by gut. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good way to do it, right? Trust your gut.
Yeah. Just yeah, and that's so there was no, like, it was just it was honestly me just drawing that line in the sand saying no more cast and associate jobs that, I think gave me the freedom and the impetus to really, jump into that next level.
Yeah.
I never
No,
had
it's
any
good you
sort
do
of
that.
doubts that I could do it. I think a lot of the pressure of casting is sort of self-imposed for, now I'm just start getting emails from a lot of casting people or whatnot. But a lot of it is self-imposed. And how I always say is I tell everybody, don't get crazy. There's going to be somebody on your set when it starts and they're going to be good, so just trust in the journey. Whoever's
What's
on
the
the set.
hardest thing
Yeah.
about it? Is it just more of the you finding the person or you
No,
finding
no,
the person that the other person is looking for? Like,
honestly, the hardest part about it is all the politics that sort of go involved in it in terms of
yeah,
afterwards. And just, who's got to weigh in on a decision. And then, and it's never like the best projects I ever worked on, usually the ones where I had a lot of freedom in casting or worked closely with the director. We just sort of did what we did. And I mean, Cold Case was a great example is because in episodic, there was and still is sort of this weirdly, oddly casting approval process where you have to go through, like, not only, you pick the people, the producers that like them, the showrunner signs off on it, then the studio has to sign off on it, the network has to sign off on it. And I'm talking about everybody who does, like, huge guest leads to, like, the woman who says, move, you know, and, and because the thrust of that show was about the casting. The casting and the music were the thrust of that show because of the way the show was shot and the flashbacks. The network and the studios and the network CBS and studios were Warner Brothers and Paramount and then Jerry and Bruckheimer. They kind of left us alone. I mean, I would say we want to hire these people, and they'd be like, okay, like literally within like 50 minutes. Okay, they're great, thanks. They wouldn't like we'd have to show to anybody. We didn't have to do all that kind of other crap stuff that you have to do nowadays. And I remember, I think I hired close to 3,000 actors on that show for the 4 seasons I did it. I only got
Jesus.
2 actors spit back, and, one was because he was, like, suing Warner Brothers, and they didn't even know they didn't even know how he got on the lot. I'm like, "Oh, I had no idea, like, we can't hire him just because he's suing us for." I think he was in The Matrix or something like that Matrix lawsuit, and so I was like, "Okay, I can't hire him," and somebody else, she was an ex-porn star, was a really, really good actress, but we found out she was still doing porn, so we couldn't.
Oh, I I probably would know who. Nah, not that I probably know who it is. There's this one actress. I actually interviewed her. She was like more in the
Who was it?
Skinemax realm. I can't think
No,
of her
no, no,
name.
no, this she was.
Oh,
This
she
one
was
was
doing.
like
Okay.
this one was in, like, probably for, like, a span of 5 years, the biggest, female porn star out there.
Oh, wow. And
Yeah.
you knew that? And you still casted her?
I'm sorry?
Or did she, like, hide
No,
it
we
from
didn't. I
you in her
couldn't
resume?
cast her. No, 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 she's a really, 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 like, a really good actress, like, top notch.
Wow.
And, like, I think she had come close and really auditioned, came close to the Sharon Stone role in Casino. She did a show,
Holy
like, she was really
crap.
good, and she was great in this role, and, I brought her in, and all my producers like, "The porn star?" I'm like, "Yeah, she's really good." They're like, "Oh, wow." Like, they were, she did it, she was perfect for the role, it really did. I sent her over to the studio, and then he was like, "Oh, that's a really good, fascinating idea." And he said to me, "She's still doing porn." And I said, "Well, she told me no." I said, "But I haven't done the deep dive to find out because I just haven't had the time." He goes, "I'll do that. We'll figure that." And they called back, we can't hire her because she's still doing like sort of underground porn and whatnot." And so I was like, "Oh,
Oh, no, who I
fuck."
was talking about was, Monique Parent.
Monique Parry. Yeah, no, no, no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
She was more hardcore, but she was really good. But she was. I always, damn, I always, like, I wanted to find a movie for her because she was so
Yeah.
good, but it never happened. So.
Yeah, it is a shame that whole, like, that stigma of that, like, "Oh, somebody knows that they were in this. They're not gonna watch our show
Yeah, and
anymore."
I
It's
was
like,
like, "But we're not Disney, it's not like
yeah,
we're Disney,
right.
we don't air like,
Yeah.
we don't air at ABC or da 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 da, I mean, it's a gritty show about, like, crime, but no, they couldn't do it, so.
One of the I think the coolest things you did is casting a show that's probably difficult just because of the origins and superheroes, with Roswell. Well, aliens. That was aliens, right?
It was aliens. Yeah, it was a superhero.
I don't know why I mixed that one up with the
Roswell was a great
superhero.
experience. That was a great experience. Roswell was
You
fantastic.
casted one of my favorite people I ever talked to, William Sadler.
I did not do the pilot. So William Sadler was cast in the pilot. So
Oh,
really
okay.
cast him. I did episode 1 and on after that. Bill, he is one of the nicest people in the entire world.
Yeah.
I mean, he really is, and he's a good guy and a good actor, rock solid. Yeah, it was great. That was to me, that was a wonderful experience all the way around. And that was my first big job. That was like the one that sort of, and that was. It's funny how these things go. The pilot was done. It was a hot pilot. Everybody was like aware of it. It got picked up for 24 episodes right off the bat, which never happens. So it was a solid job, and it was a hot showrunner, Jason Katims. It was very talented and very nice. And so they were interviewing. For some reason, he didn't get along with the original casting director, who I think was Allison Jones. I don't know, but they're a very, really good casting director. And for whatever reason, they just didn't click, I guess not. So he was looking for somebody else. And they opened up that job to everybody. And they were meeting feature film casting, and they met every sort of casting director in town. And my then business partner had just started. And so when you just started, we made the rounds to all the studios, like, hey, we're a casting, duo. We're out here, throw us a bone, if you can, or something, And we met with the woman at 20th Century Fox, who was annoying. And so she calls us up, and this is how she phrases it. She goes, I'm sending you out on a job. You're not going to get it. But it's good practice for you. It's good. And I was like, I said, then why the hell am I going? I don't want to go if it's not going to. Why am I going to waste my time? I'm saying, why are we doing it? Now you should go. Meet people. I was like, So I go in this reluctantly, and we drive to 20th Century Fox, and I go into the office. It was I remember long dark hallway to like Jason's office, and I go and I see Jason sitting at the desk, and he stands with shaking her hand. I'm like, you were the guy that was at my friend Devin Gummersall's script reading about a week ago, and said, and you sat in the corner the whole time. Why you sat there? No one could talk to you. You sit in the corner. Why'd you sit in the corner? Like, and that's how I started. That's how it wasn't even, I didn't even say hello first, And he was like, yeah, I was there. I was there. He goes, did you? I said, I cast that table reading. You did? He goes, yeah. And we had mutual friends. And we literally talked about nothing about the show for like an hour. My poor business partner was sitting there going like, why am I here? Like, I don't understand why I'm here.
Right.
And so we're talking about it. And he says, well, I guess I should tell you something about the show. And I said, I get it. It's they're aliens, teenage alienation. It's a whole. I get it. He goes, all right. Well, if you have one overriding theme about the show, in terms of casting, what would it be? And I hate questions like that. And I go, I would cast every role from the big guests recurring to like the one-liners, have everything a little bit something off about everybody. So you keep the audience guessing, are they aliens too? So, and he goes, oh, okay, great. And we're driving back, and then the woman calls, and she says, I don't know how you did. Like, she was pissed. I don't know how you did, but he won't hire you. Like, she was mad that we got the job. And I was like, sorry,
Wow. It's so weird how things happen, right? Like, you have to obviously nail the answer. Maybe if your answer wasn't what he was looking for, or he didn't like that.
I don't know. I think, Jason didn't love casting.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of just somebody who was at least friendly and were talkative and he got along with right off the bat was the most attractive part of the package, I think, and we got on great. In fact, it was at certain points he was like, I'm not going to cast it, just tell me who you like, and it was fine. Because he just didn't like the whole process, because he wasn't, it's not that he wasn't, he's very friendly and very nice, but I think he had a little bit of a socially awkward kind of quality. So, 2 hours filled with people coming in and meeting and saying hello, I don't think was like his cup of tea and whatnot. So.
Yeah. So you get drained from that, but still you had that connection because you casted that table read. And it's so funny how those things.
Yeah. And that's right. And it's everything is a combination of relationships, but it's like that in life. It's a combination of relationships. You have to be ready for the job. You have to, all that stuff. So it's all going to just coincide. And I don't think there's any planning to that stuff. I don't think there really is. So just let it
Planning as
happen.
in what? What do you mean?
Well, in terms of like, you don't go in and like, let me do my research on Jason Katims and da 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 da,
Oh, yeah.
which a lot of people do, and
Yeah.
talk about something. I go again like instinct. I go on vibes. I've turned down jobs where I'm like, I'm not getting this person at all.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, I'm not going to do that. I mean, listen, I worked with Joel Silver, the producer, who's, really effing tough. I mean, he was,
Yeah.
that was the Tom Cruise character in Tropic Thunder. And I, I think I got along with him simply because, he is a rough. I get along with very aggressive people very well because I goes in one ear out the other. I'm like, I don't give a crap, you know.
Yeah.
And one time he really chewed me out for something so stupid. And I really was stupid, but I was like, oh my god, I've arrived in Hollywood. I'm being chewed out by Joel Silver because he chewed out everybody at some point. And I
Yeah.
was like, I've arrived. I finally can say I'm officially part of Hollywood because Joel Silver literally just screaming f-bombs at me for 10 minutes. So it was really fun.
It's
It
a
was
rite of passage.
fantastic. It actually was. It was actually a lot of fun. I was like, I put him on mute. My associate was there where I was laughing. I'm like, oh my god, he just called me that. Like it was great. And we go
Oh,
like,
man,
and like the next time I saw him, he's like, hey man, hey, what's going on? He was
he
so
just needed to get something out.
he needed to get something out, and it wasn't my and then I pointed out that it was his fault why this didn't happen the way he wanted to happen. At the end, I was like, "Are you done?" And if there was some girl that he asked if we could read, and they didn't like her. We didn't, she wasn't very good, but can you read her again? Read her again. And he wanted us to hire her. And I said, at the end I said, Joel, you never said the word hire. You said read. You never said hire. If you said hire, guess what? You'd probably be in wardrobe right now. And he's like, ooh, and he just hung up. And then I saw him that afternoon for like a session or something like that. I was like, hey, man, what's going on? Like,
That's great. So you get Roswell. You
I did
said
like
big
3 or 4
thing.
projects with him. I'm sorry.
No,
I did
no,
Roswell.
no,
Yeah.
no, no. That's awesome. No, I was saying, so you get Roswell. You said that's like a big thing. At this time, are you still writing? Are you still doing a lot of writing?
No, 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 no. I kind of like, again, instinct. I was just like, oh, at that time, because when I started the year I started Roswell, I had like 2 or 3 films go to Sundance, like in the same year, same 2-year period.
Wow.
So I was lucky enough that at that time there was a very big distinction between casting directors who do films and casting directors who do um, television. I was lucky that I did both, so I kind of remained very consistent in both for a long time. The series doing episodic always fun to me that I could do this movie for like throw me $1,000. I love this. I just love this movie, so I could do stuff like that and work on these weird indie films and all that stuff and get that out of the way. So it kept me very busy until I split with my business partner, which is a story that I don't want to get into. And I just said, oh, okay, let me start writing. So that's when I started again.
You got something coming out next month, right?
October 18th. I just found out the date today. So
Yeah, I saw you posted. That's very cool. A Royal Montana Christmas.
Yeah, this is the 3rd project I've sold to Hallmark and the 2nd to be made.
Cool.
So yeah, they're very nice, very good. They're a good company. They're very sort of upfront and stand behind you. There's no issues or with anything. And so yeah, it's fun. I mean, do I personally watch those movies? No. I mean, I don't sit there. God, I'll never work for Hallmark again. No, they're great, and I know a lot of people are big fans and whatnot. I gravitate more towards like horror, the gritty, indie. That's cool, and that's where I go. But they're a pleasure to work on. They're very nice, and I would do it. I would write 20 million of them.
Obviously, you have the voice to do that. Was that all you're writing? Like early on, were you writing like horror, like you mentioned?
No,
genres that you write scripts for?
I approached my writing career very strategically, and I got very lucky with that whole thing. After a while, I had a friend, an actor that I hired before. He had written some stuff that was bought by studios but never got made. Got a lot of stuff to go into Turner and whatnot, and we just kind of hooked up and we came up with the ideas. And I worked for a company that was doing movies, and I did some movies for. And I went to the head of the head of the production there, the lady that I dealt with, and I said, I'm going to get into this writing thing. I just want some advice. What sells for you? And she told me like our big sellers are Christmas movies and female driven thrillers. And I said, okay, uh, can I send you just some ideas and whatnot? And she says, sure. So Mark and I did like 4 very extensive treatments because at that point we didn't really, we did very big 4 treatments with photos, the whole thing. They were like each were like 26 pages, which is you never send that the first thing sent over. And we sent it to her like in November. We were supposed to meet in December, but then she got like sick, and then it was the holiday. She was, let's just meet after January. I was like, okay. So we go down to this meeting, this place, and I literally said to Mark, I said, this is just going to be just sort of a jerk off meeting. Like, she's just going to tell us what to do, but. And so we get to the office, which is, the building office, which I've been to before in terms of casting a lot. And I went up to the reception. I was like, hi, Cheryl, or whatever her name was. And I was like, oh, we're going to see Sharon. She goes, oh, yeah, she wants you to go to the conference room. I'm like, conference room? Why does she want the conference room? I said, why can't we just go to her office? She goes, I don't know. So we go to the conference room. We're sitting there waiting. And all of a sudden, like 6 other people walk in. And then Shannon walks in. And she has the treatments and she throws them down on the table. And she goes, I hate those 2. I kind of like that one. So I want to think about it and I want to buy that one. And I go,
Wow.
and my friend, I see my writing partner Mark's going like I see his eyes going like, whoa, great. And I go, well, Sharon, when you say buy, what does that mean? What do you mean? What does that mean? I said, well, you go to Starbucks, you don't go say, have coffee. I'm not that latte with caramel, blah, blah, blah. What does that mean? She started laughing. She goes, oh my God, only you. I said, what? She goes, this is what it means. If you give us your info and you're okay with the deal, these are such extensive treatments. I can cut you a check for an outline tomorrow. And I said, I
Wow.
like that definition of buy. That's a very good definition. And we just saw that one right away, right
Oh
away.
my God.
Like it wasn't even like a thing. And so then that one got made. And then the next one for me was a movie called Glass Jaw that I was kind of commissioned to write that I didn't want to write. But a friend of mine kind of, but yeah, it was a long story. So I finally wrote this thing, and I was like, okay, thanks, bye. And then he had raised the money. He raised like 1.7 million dollars off of this
Wow.
script, and as I was casting that, which is something again I didn't want to do, um, the next thing, the first thing we sold to Hallmark, and this never happens. Mark, my writing partner, calls me and says, I know this producer's done a lot of things. And he said he'll take some of our ideas into Hallmark, but it's got to be kind of quick. We got to give him ideas by tomorrow. I was like, okay. So let's say this was on a Monday. I forget the day, but it was like a Monday. And so then we thought of ideas. We sent him like 10. The next day he says, okay. And then he called us back on Wednesday and he said, I'm only going to send these 2. And I think it was the only one they send in. It was about a romance novel, falls in love with the Navy SEAL she hires to consult on her book that she has to hire to consult. She's forced to hire. She says, okay, I'm turning the ideas. It's now just beware. It's one of 20, so I don't know what they're going to, respond to, but, don't get your hopes up too high. I was like, no, okay, very pleased. He calls us up on the following Monday and he says, they want to buy this. I was like, what? So by the time we thought of the idea to the time I signed the deal to write this thing was only 2 weeks.
Wow. Well, what is when they ask for an idea? What is that? Just like a little 2-3
Well, it
lines?
all depends. What a lot of times with writing, especially at sort of the bigger places and whatnot, it's a lot about timing and what they need. And sometimes they have gluts, too much product. And sometimes they're like, oh crap, we don't have any product for these 2 months coming. Like, we need, and so then they go on like a buying frenzy. And
Yeah.
this happened at the same time. But what also happened was the executive who bought it over there was married to a Navy SEAL. And she was like, oh my God, it's like my life story. I'm like, all right,
Uh,
relax over there. But it was just, who knew? No
Relax,
one knew.
lady.
Yeah. And that's why it just happened so fast because they had a glut,
Yeah.
they needed ideas, and they went right into it. And then they told us, so this is like towards the end of November, and then Thanksgiving hits, and we're sort of, okay, we're going to write the outline, do the outline and the first draft and all that stuff. So writing the outline, and it was like mid-December, and I think this thing's not going until like September, October, the earliest. And the producer calls up and goes, they want to air it in May. I'm like, it's like the end of December. There's not even a first draft. For it to air in May, it means it has to be done by the end of April, at least. Then they have to start production like the end of March. and it's already the end of December, and there's not even a draft of a script. Like, he says, I don't know, that's what they want to do, so we have to get this going really quickly. I'm like, but it's Christmas. It's Christmas. So, but we got it done. And
You did?
yeah, we got it done. It aired, and the movie, they aired that thing like 85 times in 5 years, which is, I don't know, it did very well for them. And, you know,
Wow. That's awesome. So, Michael,
yeah,
one thing you brought up before, and I think when I talked to when I talked to like Fern and Glenn, I never thought of it, but like the audition process to become a casting director, like you talked about, like the Roswell one was probably a little bit different because you knew the guy, you guys kind of just
right.
like shot the shit. But what is it typically like? They
I
say
mean, it
like
varies. It's all
okay,
different. It's like
yeah.
anything else. Like, I've been offered jobs like right off the bat. Like, I remember some guy called me up, was like, we're doing like a National Lampoon movie, and when I hired him, it was like a lot of money. I was like, okay, but like, why us? And he's like, oh no, Endeavor's has great things to say about you, so I just went with their recommendation. I'm going to hire you. I was like, oh, okay, and then one time I remember I got hired for a Paramount pilot. We get hired first, and Paramount says, "Oh, and the guy, the showrunner, writer, creator guy, really loves you." And I said his name. I forget his name now. I said, and she says his name. I'm like, I have no fucking clue who that is. I have no idea who that is. Like, I don't know. She says, well, I don't know. He loves you. And I was like, okay. And so I said, guys, so I called this guy up. I said, apparently we should meet. He's like, great, let's da da da. I'm so excited. I'm like, okay. Like, and I still have no idea. And so we meet at this for lunch somewhere, and we're talking, a younger guy, and talking, and I'm like, okay, sorry, I have no idea who you are. I don't. But I waited to close the deal first before I said that.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, I have no clue. He goes, don't you remember? It was Rod. He was the assistant to a producer at Roswell. And he goes, and he said, literally, every time you came in for a session, you would sit there and talk. It was so nice. You asked, oh, how was your day? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Don't do just talking for the sessions. And I always said, if I ever got a project, I'm hiring you as a casting director. And I was like,
Wow.
so that was like, my audition for that was just, talking to this guy every day when I was doing sessions
Be
at Roswell.
nice.
Be nice,
Yeah.
and but it's all different. And like, listen, I'm at the point in my career where I'm not jumping through hoops at all. Like, I'm just not. If it's a certain budget film, I'm not. Hire me or not. If you don't want to, fine.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. But I'm not. I'm not going to meet some guy who's only directed 2 films, about casting when I can I can cast this movie with my freaking eyes closed.
Yeah.
So, But if it's a project I really want, then if you make an exception, you do. It all depends.
But
But
is the
and
audition
also,
like you have the script and it's like, how would you look for this?
I mean,
Like I'm saying,
it
how does
depends.
that
Again,
work?
it just depends. Depends on the
Yeah.
project itself. And there was one movie. My favorite movie I cast was a movie called Buddy Boy, and I was meeting the producer. And again, I think sometimes my big mouth, I stumble into jobs, and sat down. She was a producer, you sort of youngish producer, an Italian woman from like Philadelphia. And I sat down and I said, I'm telling you right now that if I don't cast this movie, I'm going to stalk you until you say yes. I said, I love the script so much that I'm the only person to cast this movie. And she went like this, isn't it great? I'm like, oh my God, it's fantastic. Like, and then literally, I knew within the first minute that I was casting this movie,
That's cool. So
because
you got the script
I got the script, I
beforehand
reread it.
sometimes?
Yeah, and sometimes people ask you for like ideas, and I really go back and forth about that. It's because are you really fishing for free ideas,
I
or are
know.
you?
That's what I've talked to
Yeah,
people about, and I know that just got added in with the writer's deal, right? Isn't there something in that now? Because if
in
you
terms
met
of
with like loosely using some sort of idea, like if you met with me and I was like, yeah, I was trying to think of this new, I don't know if it would be like a sequel or something. You said an idea, it's like, I don't know. But
right,
then
yeah,
you
yeah,
see it end up on the thing.
right, and like Hallmark does that now. But every time you send an idea in, or certain ideas, you have to sign like a letter or a waiver or something. You have to, you have to
Oh,
sort of
okay.
read that beforehand. Back then, it wasn't like that. I mean, I remember one movie specifically, one indie movie that I remember meeting on. It had like it was an ensemble cast, and it was like a ensemble of like 8 people, and like 5 of the ideas that we had were in that movie. Now, we only give like 10 ideas for each role. However, it's not like those ideas are not going to be come up with somebody else. In other words, it's
No,
not like
yeah.
special ideas that I have. David Schwimmer. Okay, he's perfect. Everyone's gonna think of
Yeah.
think of David Schwimmer for that role.
Yeah,
Who wound
yeah.
up being in the movie.
I just
But
think the fishing eye aspect of it's not something you ever think about, but, like, for anyone, it's like, "So what would you do for this action sequence?" And it's like some stunt coordinator, "I would do this, and da, da, da," and then the next maybe they don't like their personality too much, but they love that idea. Next guy comes in, loves the personality,
I
and
give
maybe
him
he's
like
like, "All right,
like
great, you're
loose.
hired, but you know what? Here's this idea I just heard. I think you'd be
Yeah.
great doing it."
That's why I never give like ideas of somebody that's sort of new or somebody they kind of wouldn't know. I always give
Yeah,
ideas
no
like, well, the prototype to me is Angelina Jolie. Like, I give them very vague, bigger terms so they can't say, you know, they can't possibly
exactly.
steal your idea. Yeah.
No, no, I get that.
That's
It's
how
I'm an
that's how I think.
accountant, so it's like I'm going for an accountant job interview. It's not like
Yeah.
I'm able to spill any trade secrets or anything,
Right.
but
It's
I
like,
think with
you
that,
have
it
a
is
certain right.
something like that, like the closest to
It's
the
like
best thing. Yeah.
it's like you're hiring a plumber and you're saying, okay, I want to make sure if I want to use you, can you fix that leak? And that's the reason
Yeah,
why you want to hire a
exactly.
plumber. Let me see
How
how
will
you
you
do.
fix it? Yeah,
How would you fix it? Exactly, exactly. So
yeah.
yeah, so sort of falls along those same lines.
Because 'Cause I'm sure you have people that are in your, like, not Rolodex now because that's not a thing anymore, but that
I
type
never
of
do
thing
Rolodex.
that you have that if you're casting, like, the lower roles and somebody that's not gonna mess
I
around.
Not necessarily in terms of I don't number one, I don't like to repeat a lot just because it's just I
Really?
like,
Okay.
and I also like every project I ever do and for every single role that I cast, I always make sure I see new people that I don't know. Um,
That's good.
because
That's a great way
it's
to
the
do it
like,
because then you're meeting new
it's like,
people and maybe
at
there's somebody
at
else
least
better out there.
20%, right, 20% of the auditions I pick for self-tapes or whatever are literally people I don't know. I
Yeah.
and so, because I think it's important. So I don't it's not that I don't like to repeat, I shouldn't say that. It's just like, I don't know. I just, again, it's it becomes a little bit, I gotta be honest, a little bit boring for me in terms of seeing the same people in some of the same stuff that I cast. The
That
only
can make
exception
and
I
it
have to
gives
make is my best friend who is an actor who, if I didn't say I wanna hire him for every role, he'd I wouldn't hear the end of it, so did it for anything in it
uh,
for me? Anything in it I've hired him like 10 times, although he swears it's less, but I know it's like 10.
it's less, yeah. Oh, man. One thing I think that's really cool that you cast, it was A Deadly Adoption because that was such an interesting it was wild because you thought it was just almost maybe just a
Well, it wasn't a
like a
joke.
commercial or
It
something.
wasn't played like a joke. I mean, that was the interesting thing about it, but I also think that's was the reason why for me, it's a very odd project. Apparently, it's still like one of Will Ferrell's favorite things he's ever done.
Yeah,
But
I bet.
he always wanted to be in a Lifetime movie. And the original premise of it was that he wanted to do this, not let anybody know that he was doing it. And then, like, when people came home, because most of the Lifetime movies premiere on Saturdays, that when people came home from like dinner and they were kind of drinking, and turn on the TV set, they're like, "What? Huh? He's in this Lifetime? Like, I don't understand." So it was this big secret, and we debated whether or not to fill up some of the other roles with like I knew Melissa McCarthy would do a role if they asked her to, and it was Will and Kristen right off the bat they came
Yeah.
together, but I couldn't let anybody know that I was doing it. It was very secretive, so we got like a dummy script, which was awful, like was totally awful, and I was casting off this dummy script, and we decided to cast like people that you may pop up in Lifetime movies, so it would have that same feel and interest. And I remember like people were passing, and I was like, if it's people that I liked, I'm like telling you, they tell them not to. I'm telling you not to pass. Tell you why, but I'm telling you, please don't. I will stake my reputation on it. Blah blah blah, and then I mean Eric, my best friend, who's in it, plays the sheriff in it, was Um, and he had done some stuff, and I said, "I'm gonna have something for you, and you're just gonna say yes right off the bat. I'm telling you." And so he did, and he was like, "Oh my god." Um, and then, but the funny thing was, this is a funny story, was Will's was at that time at CAA, and his agent, it was the name Martin, I forget his last name, but he's a very nice guy. Apparently I'd done something nice for him as an assistant because he knew me, but I was like, I'd never met him before in my life. You know, when he was on, he called me, I'm so glad you're on this project. No, no, no. I was like, okay. You know,
I don't know you.
I don't know. Oh my
That's gonna
God,
be
yeah.
your memoir.
I
Michael
don't remember.
Testa. I don't know you.
I don't know you. But anyway, so the lead girl who was playing opposite them had done a lot of Lifetime movies and she had done stuff. And her agent at CAA I knew really, really well, and he covered me. And so we did this. So I said, I have an offer for Jessica. He goes, it's not going to be Scale. She won't do it for Scale. She made no. I was like, it's Scale. And he's like, what? You know, he started like hemming and hawing. I said, listen, before you hem and haw and get yourself all in freaking tizzy, walk down to Martin Lesak's office and talk to him. He's like, what? Because Martin was a very big agent. Melissa McCarthy,
Yeah.
Will, he had a lot of people. And I said, go down and talk to him and he'll tell you all about it. He's like, what the heck? I remember, what the F does he has to do with he's like, I don't even know him. You know, because it's a big place, you know, a lot of people work there. He said, I don't even know him. I said, go down to his office and he'll explain. So he goes down there, and I think it was like we made the offer late on Friday night, so I didn't talk to him until Monday morning, and he didn't talk to Martin until Monday morning. And then he calls me back. He goes, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's happening." Melissa, Kristen Wiig, and Will Ferrell are doing a Lifetime movie. He's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, so is she going to do it? He goes, well, of course she's going to do it. Like, but you know, can we get any more money? I'm like, no more money. So then he hangs up, and then Martin calls me up. He goes, so this Sean guy, you know, is he good? Like, he was nice. I was like, yeah, he's great. Yeah, Sean's great. But I'm like, oh, yeah, because, you know, he came down and he was telling me about it. And he goes like, well, she made $150,000 on her last movie. You know, it's hard for her to work for Scale, but, you know, with that kind of quote. And he goes, Will Ferrell made $15 million on his last movie, and he's working for Scale. So, so she could do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's
That's all
wild.
that. And I had people had to sign NDAs before they could, you know, send them the offer and all that stuff.
So they kept it really close to the vest, but I remember
So
commercials before it came out, right?
You know, right. But so close to the vest was they were only going to do publicity. Will didn't want to do any publicity for it. Not any sense of that he didn't want to. He wanted to keep kind of like, I guess, that joke alive.
That surprise, yeah.
But Lifetime was like, no, come on, we have to do press for it. Like, you know,
Yeah.
This is like the biggest thing you're the biggest stars we ever had on this network, you know. And so he finally kind of agreed, and then what happened was Martin left CAA to go to UTA, and he brought Will and a bunch of big clients with him. And apparently there was, a big uproar about it over there. So again, this is all probably second nature, but I believe it's true. They leaked it. See, somebody already leaked it that it was coming out on April. It was going to air in June at some point, and they leaked it, but they leaked it on April Fool's Day, not realizing. And so everybody thought it was a joke. And then somebody called him about it. So Will, I guess, got on the press and said, yeah, but that's not happening. We're not going to air it. But he never told the people a Lifetime that he was just effing around a little bit, with everybody on April Fool's, And so apparently all found out that he said this, like, and they were all in a meeting. They're all like, what? And they all like flipped because, he said that it wasn't going to happen. And like, what are you talking, And so it all became, it got out a little bit earlier than everybody wanted it to. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it was like such a big to do for like a week. I'm like, it's a freaking TV movie. Who cares? Like, really?
Yeah.
You really like that much, hoopla and intrigue about a freaking TV movie? Come on, So,
oh man,
it was very.
So you have a busy next month. You have your movie coming out, and then another one you casted. Is that going to be out? Cherry Pie Christmas. Is that also coming out for this?
You really do your research. Season? I guess it does. I have no clue when that's going to air. I'm more excited about this indie that I cast just that I finished called Bolio, Spirit of the Mustang. But I think one of the best comedic casts that are out there. It's that's probably not going to be out probably until.
Whoa, that's a really great cast.
Year. You're looking at it? Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
Kevin Heffernan,
Tony Shalhoub.
Tony Shalhoub. It's all really good and fun and good people. The director's freaking awesome. and that film I've been with for a while. And just in terms of I'd done a film for the director before, and then the company, the same producers, brought me the script and everything. So we just were talking about it and just kind of stayed with it for a while. Then we started up last year and we got Eugene and some cast, but then Tony couldn't do it for some reason. And then he pulled out and was going to be David Koechner, but he still was, it was a whole thing. And the money on independent films are a lot of times tied to casting. So I guess when Tony wasn't going to be in it, but I think he wanted to come on board as executive producer still, but he wasn't going to be in it. They were just like, and so they lost a little bit of the money. So we kind of they shut
Oh,
down, and then they brought it back, and then they brought it back without Tony. They had the money, Tony do it, and then Tony was still in the producer, and they were like, should we ask? I said, yeah, ask Tony again. Ask him if he wants to do it. I mean, his wife, he's married to Brooke Adams. His wife is still playing the other role. They're playing, they're playing a
oh
married couple
yeah.
they're playing a married couple on the film, and they're married in real life. It's not like he's got to, go very far to see if he should do it. Just like, hey, so why don't we?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, great. And he did it. It was, a lot of fun. It's a fun
Wow.
movie.
I
So
wonder, they definitely worked with each other before Monk, but I wonder if they ever
is
played a
she a monk?
couple. That's pretty cool.
I
I
don't
think
know.
she was
Yeah, I don't
just in a
know.
random episode.
Probably,
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure.
I've hired actually Brooke. The producers are friendly with her too. I work with the producers a lot, but I hired Brooke like 3 or 4 times, lovely person. And it was funny because I was a huge fan of Brooke Adams when Brooke Adams was a major movie star, back in the
Yeah.
like 80 or late 70s, early 80s. She did like, Dead Zone and the remake of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Days of Heaven with Richard Gere.
Heck
Like,
yeah.
she had done some really good stuff, and she was always very fascinating in terms of her look, because she wasn't quite leading lady look, but she was interesting to look at, and beautiful. There's a lot of stuff going on. So, I love when I get to hire people like that, and especially people who established in the past. I love that's like one of my favorite things to do, and so
Yeah.
I'm so happy I got to hire her at least 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, it's a fun cast. Tony Newsom's great. Kevin
Tony
Heffernan's
Newsom's great.
hilarious.
Kevin is
Eugene
all really great.
Cordero is awesome. He's a great
With Gene
improviser.
Cadera
That's
and
awesome. No, I
everybody's
looked
really
forward to that.
committed. Sarah, Cherry Pie Christmas, I'm excited too, I will say, but,
When's Polio coming out? Any idea?
I have no idea. It's an indie, so I'm sure they don't have distribution yet, so they're not even thinking about distribution, but it is
Yeah.
sort of, Kevin really liked the script and the experience, and it's gonna, I think, and again, I'm not, it may come under the umbrella of Broken Lizards Club, that super trippy, that kind of, that comedy troupe thing, and because they're
Yeah.
almost like a
They're doing
brand
the
now.
third one right now.
They're doing the third one right now, and they're actually shooting in the same area that this shot in. One of
Oh,
the reasons
really?
why we could get Kevin to do it, because he literally was like in pre-production on that, and he was like, "Yeah, I got here's 3 days." He was like, "I'll just drive down the street,"
Yeah, yeah.
So it was, yeah, we got fortuitous. And again, like I said, things happen for a reason. People get upset, and there's a reason why we shut down. It was, it's perfect group because we got all these people now, and we wouldn't have gotten it last year really because of, people were not available, couldn't do it, timing, all that stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Well, it's been
yeah,
so much fun. What I like to do is I always like to ask folks, because when you're going through a journey with anything in life, sometimes you never think about like taking a moment to enjoy or keep mementos. Early on when you were doing casting, did you ever keep mementos? Because obviously scripts are handy for you, right? Is
I
that
used
something you
to, yeah,
kept at all?
I used to like, I have like the last scripts of Roswell and LA Law, like signed and stuff like
Oh,
that.
that's cool.
That's where, yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm not, like I said, I'm not like a big set person. I don't really think about that until like later, like,
Yeah.
oh, I should have done that, and all that stuff. So I'm really bad about that kind of stuff. It's so funny as I use one of my I always say it's like, but I use it a lot. Like you just did, like my journey as an actor. I'm like, I always say to myself, did I climb Mount Everest? Did I track for like a journey? What's like a journey? I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
that's a journey. I don't know. I never, I don't, and the reason why I say this is I don't like to look at anything like that as sort of in that way, because it's just part of everyday life for me in terms of,
Yeah.
I don't think about it. So I don't have this, I'm one of those people too, that a lot of actors will come in and say, oh my God, I spent years trying to get into your office. I'm like, you did? I don't understand. Like, I don't understand that. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear
but
you.
yeah, no, I wish I had more stuff. I really
Yeah.
do. I don't.
So do you have a particular movie that you look back on that is one that maybe you just didn't get like enough eyeballs on that you love that you cast
Oh,
it?
yeah,
Is there one that
definitely
you
my
think
favorite film
of?
I cast. It's a movie called Buddy Boy that came out
Buddy
like
Boy, yeah.
yeah, and it's the one that I said to the producer if I don't cast this movie,
Yep.
and it's I personally think it's the best casting I've ever done. Um, and it's Aidan Gillen and Emmanuel Signet, who was married to Roman Polanski, and she won the Best Actress at Film Festival for some French film at Cannes, and and everybody's just so good and honestly so well cast that it's seamless and it's so freaking weird and over the top and dark and funny and it's really really tough and it contains the best still my favorite character and I think the best casting job in terms of specifically with a character um called Sal with the actress Susan Tyrrell, who has since passed away, but she's just the oddest duck you ever wanted to meet in your entire life, and she was so amazing in it, and weird, and nobody liked her, and she didn't like anybody else, but everybody was like, "Well, we don't care because what we're getting is freaking gold. We don't care."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I gotta check that
Aidan
out.
Gillen from Game of Thrones is in it. He did it before Game of Thrones. It's just really well done, I think, and um, that and Cold Case, I think, are I think the best things I've ever done.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yes.
And
Not to
it's so
slight
hard to look
anybody
back
else.
and critique yourself or pick your favorites or anything, but it's always cool whenever I ask questions about that. It's like there's one that you always think about, and that's cool.
Yeah, and in Cold Case specifically too, because of the number of the great actors I got on it, but also to the nature of the show was finding two actors to play the same character at different ages. So there was
Yeah.
also a real like a look thing to go into
Oh
it.
yeah,
And
that's true. Yeah.
you have 8 days to cast. I had 8 days to cast an average of anywhere from 25 to 35 roles every 8 days. So the turnover is really quick, but it was also really difficult to find two actors that looked alike and then had to be matching performances too, in a sense, you know. And so that was once I got the system down, it wasn't. Listen, let me clear a little thing about casting. I know you have to go, but looking at casting, it's a lot of work, but it ain't hard work. You know, it's not. I mean, you know, I'm not curing cancer. I'm not digging a ditch for 5 hours a day. You know,
Oh
sitting there,
yeah, no,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
It's no, but a lot of people like to make like, oh my god. I was like, relax. Okay. It's casting a TV show. You know, casting a movie. Who cares? Stop. You know,
But
it's
it
not
is
that.
tough. Like what you mentioned,
It's
do you,
tough,
would
but
you
it's not.
say if you, it like when you were casting Cold Case, would you cast more the adult or the child?
It all depended. I mean, usually when if you're dealing with younger kids, you usually do but it also depends on the size of the role,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
you know, and you know which was the more important thing, and you know, you want to maybe get that right first, and then cast around that and all that stuff. And it was, you know, it was very difficult, but I figured out how to do it, so it wasn't at all hard. And I was also blessed that when I started that show, I had a showrunner who was very tough, but she was very thorough, and she told you what she liked and what she didn't like. Like, a lot of times people don't, and that's more difficult to deal with when somebody says, "I love this person, let's hire them right off the bat," or like, I wanna hire this person, I just wanna see a couple more people," or, "I don't like these people," you know? That's great. When there's a showrunner or director is like, "Well, I don't know, should we hire I really like them, but I don't know," and, you know,
Yeah.
that drives me crazy, and that makes it harder. So I coincided my start on the show with the start of a showrunner who was very thorough. Every time we sent a casting tape the next morning at 9 o'clock, faithfully, we got, you know, pages of notes about the casting tape we sent to her. And, you know, usually the half of it was really great, half of it was okay. And then, you know, there are problems with this role. She's not getting anybody. Let's bring some more people in, you know. So that was
Would
very
you
helpful.
say like when you were talking about like when you're watching things and you mentioned like not looking at the actors, what are some things that it's hard not to notice? That's got to be one of them that you just mentioned because you have experience with the adult and then the flashback scene or the flash forward. Like
Oh, right, right.
having look
I'm
like
usually, yeah, I'm usually good at like saying like, oh my God, I would hire them
that
to
looks
be all
nothing
right.
like him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, listen, I think for the most part, a lot of my matches are really good. I mean, there are a couple that are just not good
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And so you try to match the performance as much as the look. I mean, we used to have there was an eye doctor in Beverly Hills that was sort of almost like on staff to lens people because as you age or whatnot, your eye color doesn't change. So it's not like it's not like not only do you have to match performance they look like, but they also have to have blue eyes as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You can't have it all. So we would like, send if anybody had to get lensed, send them right to a eye doctor in Beverly Hills. And I remember one time my executive producer comes up, she goes, listen, we have to have these roles cast by Thursday because Doctor whatever is going on vacation. I was like, do you really think I'm going to have my whole casting process interrupted because he wants to go to freaking Palm Springs? Like, that's not, I know, no, 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 no. And I did it, but I was like, nah.
But what are some things that you notice when you're watching a show? Is there any casting things that maybe to the un like I wouldn't know what to look
I
for?
can tell when a performance is sort of cut together, when the editor is the actor's friend, and so I can watch, I can watch all that, which happens a lot. And yeah, little things like that I notice. I also notice, I just notice, again, it's tough because when I'm watching something, like, I'm not involved in the casting process for the most part, and I just sort of know, oh, they could have gone further in that scene, but I know, like, it's episodic. I know they were cut short by the director and timing, and so this, I don't place a lot of quote unquote blame or problems in a
Yeah.
performance sometimes only solely on the backs of an actor, because what you audition with is always very different than what winds up on screen.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, so that you can't compare.
There's
So
so much tweaking. Hey, try it
yeah,
this way. Yeah, that's true.
so I like that, and then and again, I'm not like, so listen, there's certain actors and actresses that, every casting director just doesn't like, and that doesn't mean they're bad actors. It's just, that's not, what I'm driving for. So, you know, that's the hardest thing to sort of deal with when I'm watching something and I know I don't like the actor, but I want to watch the show anyway. And it's like, is my, dislike or even maybe extreme like influencing what I think about the show as a whole, as
Yeah.
opposed to sort of just, or is it just my, am I just being too hard on them? So, and listen, I think every
Michael,
casting director at some point hires people they don't like. They just
you
do.
think so? Oh,
I know
could you
so.
well, well, I'm saying, well, you don't like them as a or you
As
don't
an
like
actor.
them
Oh, well,
as an
listen,
actor?
as people too,
Oh,
but as actors, like, in terms of like, oh, okay, and you see why they hire them, their name, they mean something or da da da, you just go, I could that could have been so much better, if I was allowed to cast it the way I wanted to, but,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I get it, there's a business aspect to all of this that you have to sort of keep in mind as well,
Have
so
you ever, like, spite casted someone? Like
cast.
almost like if you casted someone that you knew the director wouldn't like, just
Oh, well,
to
no, but listen, you can't like I've over difference, like, in film, for the most part, the director, for the most part, has kind of control of what they want to do and, except for the executive producer or whatnot, but usually they have in episodic, it's not as the director is not as important. And I have gone into battles with some directors over people, friendly battles, but some of them I was just like, one was James Franco early on, and I literally had to convince her to hire him. Like you're, I'm like I almost like I think I called her an idiot for not going with him.
Yeah.
No. And then on Cold Case, we wanted to hire Melissa Leo, but she wouldn't come and read, but she wanted to do it. She read it, she would do it, but she wanted an offer. And my showrunner, the tough one, who wrote the episode, she was very protective, was like she was hemming and hawing. And I just like, you can hem and haw all you want. I'm not bringing anybody in. I'll solve that problem, and you're not going to see anybody. So, you know, just it's Melissa Leo or it's no one. So,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, and then she did the episode and she was, everybody's like, she's fantastic. She's great. So it
You're like,
was,
"I know.
I
I
know.
know."
Yeah. And she knew it too. She was really, it was a very tricky episode. It was a very tricky character to pull off. So
Yeah.
that's why she was just hesitating a little bit. So, but yeah, no, I've gone into battles a lot of times over actors. It's hard to overrule when you don't have the power to overrule.
Mhm.
That's a lot of people make a mistake about casting directors. They think we have the power to just to give them jobs, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
just present obviously what you
writing,
would
fighting,
think,
and
and then
listen, in
yeah.
various shows, you have a lot more power over. I think Roswell had a little bit more power than usual, just because Jason didn't care, and
Yeah.
not that he didn't care, he cared, but he wasn't in tune to it. There's other, other times it's like you're micromanaged, beyond it's being fun. And, at some point, at some films, you just hire whoever you want. I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
Hire whoever you want. So it varies.
Well, Michael, I'm happy we connected, man. New Jersey.
Oh my God, it's like 9:00 there. I always forget.
It's all good. But no, I really appreciate it. And it's cool, man. It's always good to talk, no matter what. I love talking to everybody. But like Jersey has this different thing. And I'm sure you've seen it if you ran into people from Jersey anywhere in the world. I lived in Portland. I knew a bunch of people. There were a lot of transplants there. It was like, I'd see these people from New Jersey. And not like I even knew they were out there. It's like this weird kinship. We were in Cancun, Mexico at the age of 21. It was no joke. It was like kids from France chugging beers, like in this drinking competition. France, all these places around the world, United States, and then New Jersey. There was like a New Jersey by itself. It's just I think
a
special place.
A lot of people feel like a lot of people put Jersey down as like, the stepchild of New York or something like that. It's like, and so I think that there's some camaraderie when you find out from New Jersey. Oh, you're from there too. And everybody makes, it's a great place. Everybody makes fun of it. It's like, oh, it's fantastic.
People think Newark. I think that's why. Because everybody,
Newark,
you're going to Newark, you're going to Newark. That's all they
smell from the Meadowlands. I don't know if it's still there, but that sort of thing. It still smells, right. So in the Newark airport, close to that, and I think that's all they think about. And they don't realize that actually New Jersey's a lot like California. You can go skiing and swimming and surfing in the ocean within like a couple of hours of each other.
Jersey guy, man, I love talking to Jersey guys. Yeah, it was so cool to hear a story about like fighting the James Franco cast, especially early on in the interview. We talked about like Fern Champion, talking about like Cameron Diaz and Phoebe from Friends, and like seeing these people and say, man, this is it. But it's cool that he saw it from that perspective. Like when I explained really what she meant, it wasn't like, oh my God, this is the reason it worked. It's like, oh no, I just knew this person would work. It's sort of a difference. So Michael, thank you. Your homework next week, Wild Things 2. Things are getting done in a wilder way, I guess, in this one. I don't know. We'll see. The first one was such a game changer because I feel like it was almost like there was a lot of those sexy thrillers of the 90s, but this one had like a lot of people that were sort of youngish that you saw like a year or two before in like teen movies. So it was very risque, like seeing Neve Campbell, who everybody loved and still love. And also seeing, I can't think of her name. She was in Tammy and the T-Rex. It's sad that I don't know her name. I know she was married to Denise Richards. And then she's like a Bond girl like 2 or 3 years after this. And it had Kevin Bacon, Bill Murray. It had like a phenomenal cast. And Matt Dillon as the like creepy teacher. Yeah, that movie has some good twists and turns. Maybe I'll watch that this weekend in anticipation of Wild Things 2 to really see if things got wilder or not. So don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast, follow us on all social media at Sequels Only, and don't forget to check out our website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys.